Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, I had a chance to speak to the local NBC affiliate here in Seattle, King 5 News, about this incident. And then shockingly, when I saw it replayed on the news, they cut part of my quote off that actually completely changed what I was saying. I asked them to change it, but you know how mainstream media works. But there was an incident that took place Thursday over in Golden Gardens, a part of Seattle called Ballard. It resulted in a bunch of people being shot, and now the Seattle Police Department is being really quiet about things. Now, King 5 didn't quite get the story right as to what your rights and obligations are, so I'm going to circle back. We're going to use this as an example. We're going to talk about this because this is happening all too frequently in the Puget Sound region here. So today, let's spend a few minutes, let's get the law correct, and let's get you educated, and let's talk about, can I legally shoot a car thief? Okay, now, this is what we're talking about today. Can you legally shoot a car thief? Now, I am not talking about a carjacker. That's not a thief, that's a robber. We've already talked about it on this video right here. Had thousands of great comments on it. Thank you, everyone, for watching that video. What I'm talking about is you get your car stolen, you come out to your driveway one morning, thing's gone. Okay, somehow or another you track it down and you find your car with the car thief. Are you entitled to use lethal force? Now, why am I talking about it? Well, because it appears that some folks had a car stolen, which again, that is happening all too frequently here in the Puget Sound region as well. And because we have de-policed our community, defunded our police, law enforcement can't even take care of the serious violent offenses, there is nobody, and I mean nobody, who's going to go be able to track down your stolen car. That has led a lot of people to putting tracers and trackers in their car, so if it happens to them, at least they might be able to take care of matters in their own hand. That's exactly what happened here. Car gets stolen, the owners have a tracker in it. They track that car down to Golden Gardens Park, down in Ballard, kind of there in the northwest part of Seattle. Now, although SPD has been real quiet about the details, as I mentioned earlier, here's what we do know what happens once the car owners confront the car thieves, and that is gunfire erupts, a big shootout. In fact, a 44-year-old male is now deceased. A 25-year-old male was treated at the scene and released for gunshot wounds, and then a 50-year-old woman and a 28-year-old male who drove from the scene just a few blocks. They then pulled over, called 911. They were both transported to Harborview Medical Center with gunshot wounds. So we have 3 wounded, 1 dead. Now, there is a lot to unpack here, so let's slow it down for a minute and let's talk about how the law works. This is Washington law, so if you're watching somewhere outside of the state of Washington, please understand that this will generally apply to you as well, but there are nuances, and since we're talking about both lethal force and defense of property, I would encourage everyone to consult with local counsel, as I'm sure state laws have some nuances. In general, when it comes to defending property, like your car, you can use any force so long as that force is necessary, reasonable, and proportional. Okay, that's to defend property. Now, one of the things you need to understand under Washington law, and in most states this is the case. I know of a couple states where it's an exception, but most states this is the case. You cannot legally use lethal force to defend only property. Why is that? Well, when we take a look at the 4 rules as to when we typically do get to use lethal force, we know that the 4 instances in which we can use lethal force is, number 1, you are in imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury. Number 2, somebody else in your presence is in imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury. Number 3, a felony is being committed upon your person. Or number 4, a felony is being committed inside your home. Now, why can't we use lethal force to defend property? Because you'll see there that when we look at the 4 justifications when we can typically use lethal force, it requires that a human being, an actual person, be placed in that imminent fear of death or serious bodily injury. So again, you may love your car. It may be worth more than a condominium. It's a really, really nice car. Do you get to use lethal force upon the car thief? No, you do not. You may want to. I totally recognize that. But legally speaking, no person is in imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury. No felony is being committed upon the person. No felony is being committed inside the home. So in most states, lethal force is not justified. However, and we see this all too frequently with the slew of catalytic converter thefts that are also going on in the Puget Sound region, is if you approach the thief and you begin to use reasonable, non-lethal force to either defend or retrieve your property, and then that thief turns their ire towards you, well, now we're not defending property anymore, are we? No, we are actually defending ourself or somebody else in our presence. And what likely happens here is that the victims of this theft approach the thieves, demand the car back, a firearm gets drawn, the other firearm gets drawn, and we are at game on at that point. So as you can see, there is a ton still left to unpack. And the details of how this confrontation began are going to be very important. I do not believe that it is legally impermissible. Therefore, I believe there is a legal justification to display a firearm as a way to threaten or intimidate the thieves to try to retrieve the property. That is not the use of lethal force in any way, shape, or form. Unfortunately, as we've also talked about, is that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner is also being the mindful gun owner and recognizing that when you display your firearm, there's a high probability that the other person may display theirs, and we end up in this exact situation where we got bullets flying all over Golden Gardens Park. But here's the other lesson that needs to be taken from this, and it perhaps is even a more important lesson. You see, when we depolice our community, when we start defunding our police, intentionally removing law enforcement officers from the roadway, terminating a bunch of them because they had the audacity to make independent health decisions, and then create a revolving door for all of these criminals to get in and get out, get in and get out, that happens all the time. You leave the lawful and responsible citizens of the Puget Sound region, of the state of Washington, of the entire United States in a position where, candidly, they have to take matters into their own hand. They have to take matters into their own hand because there's nobody there to help them. And we're beginning to see a huge increase in these violent confrontations where people have put trackers on their property, had that property stolen, and then go try to retrieve that property. Take a look at NBA legend Shawn Kemp and the problems he finds himself in for going and trying to retrieve a stolen iPhone from some thieves down near the Tacoma Mall. This is a direct product of local government that has absolutely no interest in making sure that you are safe and protected. In the meantime, if you guys got any questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you should know how to get a hold of Washington Gun Law by now. If you don't, that's okay. That information is right down there in the description box. Now, let's remember, part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.